Peace and grand rising to the sovereign original indigenous.
Please do your demonstration on me, Pauline. I'm asking you, I'm challenging you, Pauline. Do your demonstration on me like you said. What are you waiting for?
In the Biblioteliotheque, it says that the Lord sits in the heavens and laughs.
Says you're an asshole.
The Lord sits in the heavens and laughs, a laugh of derision at the adversary. I can't even call that an enemy because they're not strong enough to be an enemy. So I have to say an adversary. Islam, let us continue. So today is July the 3rd, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1443 on the ancient sun calendar, 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand.
Why don't you ever wear your peacekeeper uniform anymore, Pauline? You ran those up on your sewing machine a long time ago. You know.
Just one moment. Let me put this in like easy to stop the noise. Okay. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American court action. I am Sovereign Living Justice Pauline Denise Ritchie in Capitis Diminution Nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are the Sovereign Living Justices in Capitis Diminution Nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes, as well as I am like to jure bay of the same nature. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient Al-Moroccan, Moorish American descendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign, ancient empire state of Morocco, the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are Washington, District 4, Queen Columbia, Empress Columbia, the Universal Moorish American Consulate, and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. We are peace, we are one nation, we are one state, one empire, and one God. We exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, and we do hereby accept our sovereign ascension, Islam. So the first topic that I want to put on the table is with regard to Bitcoin mining, because we've heard much about Bitcoin, and so most who've been paying attention to that and the financial piece of which we pay close attention to our financial unfolding, revealing. So in the quote-unquote news recently, Bitcoin and all of those corporate fictions created by corporate fictions has taken a tumble for the worse, and it has gone down by quite a bit. Why is that? Well, it's because the Moors declared their nationality, and then we took control of our own capitalism. It had to go down, and we knew it was going to do that because of the way that some, and I'm not saying all Bitcoin miners, but I'm saying that there is a particular faction that participated in quote unquote starting Bitcoin that was doing it to attempt a usurpation of the Moors and our sovereign status and our connection to the earth. How did they do that? Well, they tried to attach Bitcoin to the land by starting what they call their Bitcoin mining camps, where they put these Bitcoin mining centers, is what they were calling it. They put these centers near coal manufacturing plants. And we know coal comes from the earth. And so what they were going to do is use something natural in order to tie Bitcoin to the land and say that it is natural and that they don't need to go through the Moors to get to this land, to be on the land. So I pulled up a story that explains what they were doing so that we can see that it's all about the land and the natural resources and the things that have to do with the Moors. It's all about that. I was wondering, you know, as I was doing some study and looking at this, how Bitcoin was unfolding, we placed a lien on that whole situation, the corporate version of Bitcoin. We placed a lien on it the minute we saw it, way back in 2019 or something like that. That was when we first started looking and thinking, wait a minute, we know that that's not currency. So they stopped calling it cryptocurrency and started calling it just crypto, because it's not a currency unless we say it is. And when the Moors say it's a currency, then it becomes a currency, a medium of exchange. And if we don't say it, then that's not what it is. And that means somebody lying about what it is. So what we did was we put a lien on them, and the evidence of the lien and the court action that we did on them is out there. And when I say them, I mean the spirit of usurpation. We're not, and the courts and corporations. We're not mad at anyone when we lien and do court actions. We're just stating who we are, because that's another way to state our sovereign status, is to govern the resources. And that demonstration is on the public record at Like to Jure Bay channel. You can go back through the court actions and you'll see the court action and the lien on Bitcoin and the blockchain. What they were doing was using the coal, what they called it coal waste, which is what's left over. They were using the coal to power what they call the supercomputers that create Bitcoin. So they were trying to, again, usurp. And when I say they, not all of them, just a couple who know what's going on at above the 33rd degree, the 33rd Masonic degree. And so it has taken a tumble because when people signed on for that, they were just looking to see how many heirs do we have that we can say are minors, M-I-N-E-R and M-I-N-O-R. And when they look to see who do we have any heirs here, then it's like, okay, we have their consent to do this. Now let's see what's happening, because there's an individual contract that was made between them and an heir who did not know that they were an heir. They didn't even know. They had no idea that all of that was about them. But all it took for us Moors was just to wake up and say, okay, we are in control of our data. Because data is actually more valuable than any other natural resource, simply because it belongs to us. It's about us. It identifies us if we say it does. Now, ultimately, we identify ourselves. So nothing anyone says or writes is going to identify us. We identify us first and foremost. That will never change. But what Bitcoin what those who had the nefarious, the little few in there who had the nefarious intention, because they specifically wanted to use some natural resource in order to create a Bitcoin so that they could say, okay, we have currency and we got currency without them, without their consent and approval. And if for those who are really into Bitcoin, you know that there's that they actually lobbied very hard with their phony congressmen in order to be able to say that Bitcoin is classified as property. It's virtual. But if they could call it property, then they could say they're property owners. And you can look that, if you want to look into that some more, there's just Google, there's a subject, and we're not mad. His name is Michael Saylor. And I learned a lot from watching his interviews. I realized what was being done, but I couldn't put my finger on, okay, where is he making that claim that Bitcoin is property? Where does that come from? Because we know they can't own any property. Corporations cannot own property. Corporations cannot govern. And what they were doing was using the code to create the Bitcoin and then having one of us to claim the Bitcoin. And if they had one of us to claim the Bitcoin, then they could say, okay, we have their consent. Now we're part of that too. We're property owners, and because it's the data is tied to the land. The data is tied to the land. That which identifies is tied to the land. That is what they wanted to do, was usurp by tying themselves to the land without full disclosure even. So because the coal is a natural resource and it was used to create a Bitcoin, then all they needed was one heir to claim a part of that Bitcoin, because they were selling Bitcoins in parts and pieces. And to claim that one piece, and then all the rest of them could claim the rest of it. Because that's how they do anything that they do, is all they need is one of us to contract with them in order for them to all say, okay, we can all do it because they did it. We have their consent, because look, there's one right there. One heir carrying a whole industry. So it is our data, and this is our topic. Our topic is the one thing that you can do that guarantees that you will never go back to pretending to be enslaved or giving the illusion of enslavement, because we can never be enslaved. We can never be enslaved in reality. We can only be enslaved in theory. The one thing that you can do is declare your nationality. But see, most don't realize what that really means and what really has taken place here. When you declare your nationality, that means that you've taken the data that was being used to run everything else, and you're saying, nope, no capitalist, no venture capitalist is in control of this data. I am. The data is the appellation and the all caps and all of that, and how you identify yourself. Google made its debt fortune, because it's debt. It's not even real fortune. It's not real wealth. Google made their perceived wealth by collecting data. And again, there's nothing wrong with Google. We link them too. So we're not afraid of any of this. We just want to point out that it was your data that was being used to supposedly create all of this, the ones that seemed like they were so wealthy. They wanted to know what you ate, what you like, what you don't like, how you feel about things, so that they could sell you something. And when they sell you something, that means you've contracted with them. And this is in our sleep. We know now that contracts of adhesion are not a thing because we terminated all corporate contracts and we stand being the creditor. So they would sell you something. They created whole industries to sell you something. And the term that when these guys are talking about this, when these quote unquote venture capitalists were talking about this, they always use Nike as an example because they know we liked Nike tennis shoes. And they say anyone who was selling Nike tennis shoes knew they were going to get at least one heir to sign something, any autograph, whether it be a credit card receipt or online order, or going in and doing an exchange using fiat with those bond numbers on it. They knew that we were going to come and get that. And by us liking the things that they created, okay, and let's just be clear that we created all of that first. And then they usurped it and then started taking and saying, okay, no, you can buy it from us. Well, when we, quote unquote, buy it from them, they get data. And they say, okay, we got one contract that we can create all these derivatives from. And that's the real deal with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, for those who are in that, who look at that, that's why they keep talking about NFTs, non-fungible tokens and things like that. All that is we can create 1,000 more derivatives from just one contract with the Moors. Just one contract, one more saying, I bought some Bitcoin. I bought some Bitcoin, la, 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 if they're saying that. And then they create all of these derivatives from it. Financial derivatives from just one. And they can do it not into perpetuity because they don't live that long, but they can create derivatives without, there's no number that you can use to describe the number of derivatives they can create just from one moorishe contract. So that's what they've been doing. And they wanted those contracts tied to the land without going through the Moors. So they said, okay, we will use these supercomputers, quote unquote, and we will use coal in order to keep these computers running, and that will tie us to the land without having to be subject to the Moors. But the reason it took a tumble here recently is because we don't have any contracts. None of us have contracts with them, and we stated that on the public record. See, that was their last hope. That's why they called it crypto. A crypt is a grave. And they knew that time was up. And when I say they, I'm talking about corpses and corpses. That's what I'm talking about. Zombies, corporations, shell corporations. They knew that it was time for us to wake up. And they tried that one last thing to connect themselves to the land and usurp. And then create all these derivatives and say, oh, we can live forever now. We own property. We own property. That's what they were trying to say. Corporations cannot own property. And they don't have a sovereign identity. They don't have a all lowercase identity. They don't. They have all caps or a ward of the state, which is the first letter capitalized and the rest lowercase. And that's the difference between what they call public and private. Public is all caps, or no, public is in capitis diminutio minima, and private is all caps. That's been the issue, Moors, with nationality and us declaring our nationality. We're saying we're not your private property. That's why they kept talking, everyone's talking about the reepublic. That means go back to being in capitis diminutio minima at least. And then for us, we needed to go all the way to in capitis diminutio nullo, which is all lowercase letters. We needed to do that first. And then state properly that we're the public in capitis diminutio minima, and then we can do all caps, which is private. Because see, the problem with corpses and corporations is that they're private, but they were pretending to be open to everyone, but they're not open to everyone. They're not open to everyone. They're open to those who are subject to them. A corporation is an agreement. A corpse is an agreement. And so, do we need those agreements, the dead agreements, dead corpse agreements? No, we don't need them. We don't need them. We're the living state. Anything that we want on our land, we can get it without those agreements. We just have to know how to speak to those things. And Bitcoin is, to me, that's, it's kind of like the ultimate fiction, because without a computer, you're screwed, and excuse that French, but if your computer shuts down or the internet shuts down, you have nothing. And that was part of that whole tie it to the land, hurry and tie it to the land, and that way it exists even if computers shut down. Because that's the real deal too, is do they exist on the land if all the paper goes away? Or if all the gigabytes go away? Do they exist? The answer where corporations and corpses are concerned is no, because they only exist on the paper. And that's why our ancestors wrote everything they wrote in stone or on gold tablets or silver tablets or in the earth or in our DNA or ONA rather. They wrote their will in our blood, which never goes away. That's why we've been here since time immemorial and gonna be here into perpetuity for as long as we choose. It's your data. See, a name change and a judicial proclamation, those are two of the most brilliant documents on earth. Two of the most brilliant documents on earth. Because all of these corporations only existed to get the data so that they can say, here's the contracts. And they can't move without a contract now. And either they get a contract or they get an affidavit. And if they get an affidavit, that's a command. That's the only way they move. Either a command or a contract. And we don't contract with corpses. We just give them commands such as all rise and stand and so on and so forth. It's the data. It's your data. Your data. Just one of you Moors one of us Moors, I have to include myself, just one of us, they can create, the wealth is endless. The derivatives are endless. One derivative, what is a derivative? A derivative is a contract that is made from another contract. That's what the stock market is all about, is derivatives. So, for example, one mortgage, let's use a mortgage as an example. Empress, allonges. One allonges, and yes, that's a great word, because that is exactly what's being, a derivative and an allonge is the same thing. In other words, it's glue onto it's adhesion. One mortgage, let's just think for a minute about the number of contracts, and we'll just use a low number of contracts. With one mortgage, there comes what? The light, utilities. So that's at least 3 contracts right there. And then if the mortgage, every day there is interest on the mortgage accruing, and that's why the financial system was made so that every second the clock is ticking, interest is being accrued, because that's a whole new derivative, because that interest has to be put on paper. And when they put it on paper, it's like a brand new contract. Every month that a mortgage is paid, it's a brand new contract. So that's another derivative. And they were doing them for 30 years. 30 years. And now I just heard this recently. Now they're trying to get people to sign 50-year mortgages. 50-year mortgages. That means that your children and your children's children will be dealing with that contract right there. And how sticky is that? You'll never be able to get out of that if you don't know who you are. 50-year contracts. That's 2 generations. When you talk about 21-year-olds, a generation being 20 to 21 years, which is old enough for childbearing and, according to some. So it's your data. Oh my word, Empress Rose, is that real? So in the chat, Empress Rose says there's a 99-year mortgages in Japan. I believe that. I believe that. I believe that that's true. Why is that? Because of all the derivatives that can be, you can support a whole country on just one moorishe contract. That's why we're so wealthy. Moors, that's why everything that was done was created, was done so, geared towards us. Why? Because you can create so many derivatives from that. Just one contract. And then, if any changes in the perceived mortgage is a new derivative. So there are changes every day. Interest rates go up and down. Different things happen. A late payment here, or, a bank going out of business and selling it to someone else. That's how many derivatives is that? How many? How many contracts and allonges and, how much glue is that on that first contract? And all of that stuff is going on while you're going about your day, doing things daily, and more wealth is being created. Perceived wealth is being created just on one contract. The same thing goes for any type of financial dealings, any type. I don't care if it's a $10 loan. from a advanced place, you know, they create so many derivatives from that too, because they bundle that and put it on the stock market, and then someone else buys it, and then there's and it's still going on and on and on and on. And you think that you have paid it back and you're done with it, and they still creating bond after bond after bond after bond after bond after corporate bond with your one signature, your one autograph. Now, for us, all of that is good to know, simply because we have our own financial system. And our financial system works the same way, except it's in our favor. It's creating credit for us everywhere. Credit everywhere. Anything that we do in our natural status, it creates credit everywhere for us, into perpetuity. We just needed to know that. We needed to know that a name change document. On a name change document is a document. It could literally be called a capital document, but it's not a capital document. It's an anti-capital document. In other words, it's taking things out of all capital letters and putting it in all lowercase letters. So it's saying they don't have the right to speak about me in all capital letters, because we know that's what they do when you go into fake court. They capitalize. Anything, even if you say you're a bay or an L, they capitalize that and put it on the document. They say, okay, that's who they say they are, clink, capitalized, and then it gets put on the stock market. It becomes a document that corpses and corporations use. And that's why it was important for us to, and again, you know, that's why it was important for us to declare our nationality, because our data creates so much wealth for us, and others were using that as a resource when we were asleep. Not anymore, but because, and if you go to any of the financial channels, all they talk about is the lack of capital. They don't have any capital. Why is that? Because the Moors are in control of their own capital. Capital is not us. We're the source of the resource. Capital is a resource. But who's the source? We are. We are. And so, you know, when we autograph things now, it's a credit everywhere we go. It's a credit. We have to do it with our documentation on the public record. And here again, anything that I autograph, I crafted it. I don't autograph anything made by others. I craft it. And if there is an affidavit, and this is where we're moving to also, is if there's an affidavit stating who we really are, which it is on the public record, then anything that we do autograph, we can point to the public record and say, all rights exercised at all times. And then they just go and look at the public record and say, okay, we cannot enslave this one. Islam, Brother Smith Bay, yes, Islam, yes, I see you up there. Islam, he's holding up one of his documentations. And I can't read the document, but I see those flags and that government letterhead. So, hey, we affirm. We affirm. Listen, all that, when they call themselves, when they being the modern European subjects who were in D.C., the fake D.C., the corporate D.C., they call themselves an administration because they were doing clerical work and creating capital. That's why it's called a capital. What does that mean? Whenever the Moors sign something, take it and say, okay, we got a contract here. Let's create some wealth with this. And when I say wealth, again, they were creating debt, not wealth. But we can look at what they did and use our system to create the wealth that we need to create. Because, again, we're the wealth, period. And they would take that one contract and they would say, okay, what can we do with this? That's all they said. What can we do with this? We can, how much can we create with this? And then the Federal Reserve was the holder of the contracts. All of those contracts were being held by the Federal Reserve Corporation. And all they would say is, okay, we got these contracts, Treasury, we gonna sell you these contracts, and you just give us the system, those credits, and then we just go around and we give the banks what they need, and we give the corporations what they need. And let me tell you about CEOs. Every CEO, everyone that was previously doing business as CEOs, let me put it that way, because that's the truth. They were just acting. Every one of those actors was a venture capitalist. Everything they created, whatever products they created, the only reason they created the products was to get our buy-in, to get at least one contract from us that says, I like that product, I want that product. Every CEO, and then what would they do? Bundle the list of the names, bundle the list of names, and then take that list of names that were on the contracts to the bank and say, I have capital here for you. Give me some credits, debt credits, if I can put it that way. Because again, they were just creating debt so that we could see how to create credit. So they take those contracts to the banks and say, I got all this capital, because all they did was capitalize the names. And capitalize it and then call it a name instead of calling it an appellation. Because you can't capitalize an appellation. Not like that. They cannot capitalize an appellation. We can do whatever we want. But they cannot capitalize an appellation, so they call it a name. And again, remember, it's something that they created because they were the author who wrote it on the paper. They called themselves the authority, and they're not even really the author. They were acting as authors. That's what the birth certificate was. It was them putting something on paper, claiming to be the author of it, and then claiming to be the authority of it. So I told you all about the demonstration that I did this past Friday. They're not any of that where we're concerned. None. They never were. They never were. So we are the authors and the finishers of our own faith. And that's a bibliophiliotech reference. And faith is money. It's credit. That's why they say full faith and credit. Because it means, what do you believe in that creates your wealth? Is it a corpse? No, it's not. Islam, Brother Smith Bays, that's the real money right there. It came from you. It has your autograph on it. That's the real money. Dollarium is the real money because the Moors print it and then autograph it. That's the real money. Listen, anytime, because we are connected to the land eternally, Anytime we autograph anything, even in our sleep, the signature, because that's the difference. A signature is what you do in your sleep. An autograph is what you do when you're awake. Even the signatures then gave them, they could create derivative after derivative, allonge after allonge, contract of adhesion after contract of adhesion. And they would take all of that straight to the bank. And I say the bank, but we know who the real bank is. The bank is us autographing things. I don't care if you spent $10 on a broom and you autograph something. They're like, we got it. Why do you think Walmart got so big? By creating all these things and saying, okay, let's make it inexpensive so we can get as many heirs through there as possible. And then we'll build an empire on the heirs' consent to take the things we make. That is why, Moors, that's why we have to produce our own products also. And we do already, really, because everything belongs to us already. We just needed to stand as and be the CEOs that we are, and be the postmasters general, and be the presidents and all of that, because everything already belongs to us. But that Bitcoin thing, don't let that don't let all of that smoke and mirrors. You know, they were talking some huge numbers, but they felt so sure about that thing because of that coal, of the coal. The coal. They needed electricity, energy, frequency, vibration, but they wanted it to be attached to the land. You got to go through the Moors for that. And the minute the Moors find out that anything crazy is going on, those liens start flying and court actions start going, and everything gets back in its proper place. You know, it's supposed to, because nothing's going on our land that we don't know about. And when we see certain ones making certain claims, especially corpses, when we see corpses and corporations making claims, it's like, okay, what is that all about? And we can see through it because we already know what the end goal is. The end goal is always, thank you, Empress Rima. She said Reuters media has just been leaned. Islam, Associated Press is next. Islam. That's that's moving like I do. The minute we see something, we got the liens and court actions flying, you know, because it belongs to us, and we appreciate those who don't have nefarious intentions where Bitcoin is concerned, because Bitcoin's a great idea. It's a great idea, and anything that's created is created for our ease and convenience and for our use. So we're excited and happy about everything, all things that have to do with our vast estate. We just know that we need to ensure that we put everything in its proper place and make sure that it's all clear to everyone that we are wide awake and we know what's going on our land, and we govern everything that's going on our land, you know. So I had been hearing when I first started hearing about Bitcoin, I had been hearing that they were putting these data mining centers. They put one at the North Pole and things like that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what is that all about? Well, that's trying to put it somewhere and claim the land there. We know about all of that. And we're not mad, because all it takes for us to do what we need to do has already been done. We've put everything back in order, and everyone knows who's who and what's what. It's so it's all good. We're not mad at anyone. We as a nation and as the state, we appreciate imagination and creativity. We appreciate that. But Bitcoin and all of that stuff, listen, none of that stuff is new. It's just that they just discovered it 10 years ago or 12 years ago. They just discovered that that can be done. But all they did was look back at our records and say, what did the Moors do back in, 723 BC? Oh, they had Bitcoin. Oh, okay, let's do that. And you can look at the hieroglyphics and the records and see that we had everything, we've done, there's nothing new under the sun, Islam, Empress Rose, yeah. So, yes, we are the land, indeed, indeed, indeed. And that has been their, they've been wanting to claim, but you cannot get to the Father but through us. And let's just think about that term, because, the modern European subjects are always talking about the Father, the patriarchy, the Father. They called the quote-unquote Pope the Holy Father. Okay, the one that was pretending to be the Pope. We know that the Moors are the popes. But they talk about, and Christianity is based on getting to the Father, right? No one comes through the Father but by me. Well, let's think about that for just a minute. They call the earth mother. It's Mother Earth. Mother Earth this, Mother Earth that. We hear that a lot. Mother Earth. Well, if Mother, if Mother is Earth, then what do they say is Father? Does anyone know what they say is Father? I know. I just want to see if anyone has heard what they say is Father. Yes, Empress Rima. Father time. They're trying to get eternity. They're trying to live forever. No one gets that unless you come through the Moors. Mother Earth and Father Time. They want more time. No one gets to the Father but by us. That's written. It is written in the law. No one comes to the Father but through us. You don't get the keys to time and eternity unless you come through the Moors, because we've been eternal. From day one, this bloodline is not going anywhere. It's been. There never was a time when we were not. That's written. Chapter 1, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. And that's where they're trying to go, but you can't go there without the heirs. You can't go there without the heirs. So, with that being said, let's see. That brings us to, again, what can you do that will guarantee that you will never be enslaved again? Islam, Empress.
I just wanted to
go ahead, Empress.
Bring up that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Are there two of us?
No, go ahead, Empress.
I just wanted to bring up that through this Bitcoin venture they have, they never mention what the lawful money is. That they were very careful about not mentioning, you know, the constitutional contract they were under. And it would drive me crazy. Why won't anyone talk about what the constitutional money is? I guess that doesn't belong to them either, the gold and the silver. But it's no way that they could make this theirs, because even if it's waste from coal, it still belongs to us. And then can one more speak up for all the rest of us to say that they can actually own a piece of land and or even own the waste of the coal? Yeah, it's what I thought.
Well, the Moor can give up their estate. We all have an estate. And it's not really giving up their estate. That's not even the right word, because the estate is not going anywhere. We're coming out of what that looks like, Empress. We're out of what that looks like, of individual Moors contracting with them. Then that just makes it bad for that Moor and what they're trying to do. We have to save ourselves first. Then we can assist other Moors, but one Moor has an infinite estate. Okay? Each one of us has an infinite estate. Together, we are the estate. And so it's the individual contracts that were the problem, Empress. They were the problem because so many of us made individual contracts instead of moving like we're moving now, which is using the state as the conveyance method. We're moving together with the state as the conveyance method, and no one can argue with the state. But those individual contracts that Moors were making is what you're referring to when you say, can one Moor give away the? No, they can give away what's theirs because they're sovereign. And it's not really even giving it away. It's just allowing it to be usurped. And even then, jurisdiction can be invoked at any time. So, you know, even those who do that, thinking that they're helping some foreign matter, some foreign spirits, you're not helping foreign spirits. They're gonna seek to devour, because that's a spirit. We're not mad at faces. We're not mad at skin color. We're not mad at any of that. It's about the spirit part of it and the corpse usurpation and all of that. That's the part that we're not mad at. That we just put it into submission. We have dominion over it. All of that, you know. But more, that's the issue that we had is the contract, the individual contracts with corpses, in order to get something that's already ours.
Islam. Speaking of contracts and what you had mentioned last week, and Bloomberg had an article about how UK has told all of their citizens that they have 100 days to spend all of their previous contracts, and that they would have new contracts, which is their money I'm speaking on, would be issued after the 100 days would be over. So I was meditating on that. I was like, wow, dear God, that is like proof beyond denial that their contract is over, because I have never noticed ever in history where corporate fiction has issued and put out on the public record that you have to stop using a certain contract of money before a new contract of money is issued. And I'm just like, yes, because they have to stop using this contract, and this is proof that the Moors have been doing their due diligence and it's been working, because the UK is part of the British Crown, so that's like all hats off to the Moors that they have put up their white flag and said we have to abide by what they are competently stating and demonstrating,
Yes.
because we can't do whatever we wanted to do anymore with these contracts. We have to create a new contract that they honor, because we've been out of honor, and we have to honor them with a new contract, which is new money.
Yes, and we actually have to honor ourselves. We had to honor ourselves with that.
Mm-hmm.
We had to honor ourselves. Empress, you're absolutely right. I mean, what else can be done? Nothing. They have to yield.
Yeah.
You know, when we are competent, that is the protocol. And that's why I say Moors, because see, some Moors still look at them and say they're just lawless. They do whatever they want to do. No, they do not. No, they don't. Nope. They can't just do whatever they want to do. We didn't create them like that. They don't have that autonomy. When we're competent, they must yield. And not only must they yield, they will to yield when we are competent. They won't move when we're competent. And we say, stop right there.
Islam. And I'm sorry, I want you to, if you can actually, if you would state your testimony about how you was demonstrating and not opening your domicile door when the policy enforcers was coming every day. You had told the story before the class started.
Yes. So I've mentioned that one several times, because that happened in 2018 when the ancestors were trying to say, okay, like, start doing court, the court actions. The court needs to be moving and speaking, because we knew that that's what we were supposed to be doing. But in 2018, I was only a year and a half old as far as Moorish science is concerned. And I had been, in 2017, I had been detained for 20-something days from December 10th, 2017 to January 4th, 2018. And then later in 2018, or 1438 for us, the policy enforcers came to the door for 3 weeks straight, because we had then was when we started terminating all corporate contracts, knowing that, wait a minute, it's the contracts that they're after, because they don't own anything. So why? Because I was thinking, why do they keep coming? And then the ancestor said, because of the paper, because they only exist on paper. And so I said, okay, Moors, we have to start terminating all corporate contracts. We have to start doing that. And when we started doing that, they said, okay, if we don't have a contract with her, we're not going to be able to do anything else. So we're going to have to go there and just keep coming until we get a contract. All they needed, when they started coming, they couldn't kick the door in because they didn't have the paperwork to do that. They didn't have my permission, and our consent is just an autograph on anything that they produce. But we had said on the public record, and we say it today, we had terminated all corporate contracts with any dead entities and factions. And they were coming for 3 weeks straight, every day, knocking on the door, knocking on the door. And the first 2 or 3 days, I will tell you that I was afraid the first 2 or 3 days. And I've stated this before. I was like, why are they here? Why do they keep coming? I'm not going to answer the door, so why do they keep coming? And the programming was playing, oh, they're going to kick the door in. They taking all y'all out of here. You know, that was just programming speaking. They had no authority to do any of that. And I knew it, but the programming was there, and the ancestors were trying to work that programming out of me. And so the first 2 or 3 days, I sat in the hallway and I said, ancestors, now I have done everything that you've led me to do up to now. So I'm turning this over to you. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I'm turning this over to you. And this was the third day. And I turned it over to the ancestors. They were knocking on the door. Couldn't kick it open, but they were knocking every day, hoping that I would come downstairs and speak to them through the door or open the door or something. All they wanted to do was hear someone respond to their war cry, their war rant, their war chant. And then after about a week and a half or so, they came still every day. And my consort was like, why do they keep coming? I said, they want a contract. And he wasn't all the way awake, I said, well, I'm not going to go down there and answer the door. And if you all would not do it either, because my heiress would come out of her room like she was going to go answer the door. And I said, don't do it, because they're looking for a contract. They don't have one, but they're looking for one. And my consort is from the south side of Chicago. So he was like, I ain't opening that effing door. Those bitches ain't getting in here. Excuse me. They're not getting in here, So he knew he's tough. He knew, and he knew he knows their games, Even in his sleep, he knew their games, And my heiress, she would just open the door, Mom, and then go back into her room, because they were coming every morning for 3 weeks. And after the second week, they came to the door one day, because I wasn't saying anything, I wasn't contracting, I wasn't doing any of that. And one of them said, Miss Ritchie, if you'll just come to the door, I just want to speak to you for a minute. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm not Miss Ritchie, so let's know that that's truth. I'm not Miss Ritchie, not theirs, not the one they created. And so that third week, I said, ancestors, they keep coming. Why do they keep coming? And the ancestor said, I guess you're going to have to do a court action to stop them. And because I had done my first court action earlier in the year, as soon as we said we were on May 18, 2018, we were sent by our government, to do consular duties. And so I did a court action right after that, just to say, okay, we know we're the court. Well, I hadn't done one since I did that first one, I believe, at the end of May or the beginning of June. And then I hadn't done one, and it was getting down into like September, October time frame, November time frame, somewhere around there. It was getting towards that time. And I hadn't done another court action. So the ancestors was like, I guess we're going to have to wake her, tell her to get on up and start doing court actions, because the courts need to be active on the land, from her, from what we're telling her. Not that they weren't active other places, but we needed to put our energy into that also. And so I said, okay, I'll just do it. So when they came and knocked on the door that third week, it was on a Wednesday, I believe it was, that they came. It was either a Wednesday or Thursday. It was their last day coming, because they came on a Wednesday, and I got up in the window and I took a photo of them in the driveway. They started looking at conveyance tags and looking in conveyances and things like that. And I'm like, so I took a photo of them doing that, an unlawful, illegal search and seizure, search rather, because they couldn't seize nothing. But I said, okay, I took a photo, I typed up a court action, and I put all of that out on social media with the photo of them saying that they have court. And the thing about them coming back and forth like that every day is on the back of their black stuff that they were wearing, it didn't even properly identify them. It just said police. Well, whose police? What police? Who are you? They were bandits. Because no ID, no nothing. Just some black clothes and some foreignness and something on the back that says police. You could have been anybody. And you were anybody at that time. A dead body, to be exact. So we did the court action, and as soon as we put that thing out on the public record, because see, you know, they watch the public record. They watch it to see. And anytime, because see, that's kind of sort of like an investigation of their corpse. But as soon as I put it out there on Facebook, I put the photo of them and I put a court action and the date of the court action, they stopped coming. That next day, they stopped coming because I put it on the public record. And that's the beauty of what we do, Moors, is as long as we keep it a secret and we don't tell and we don't put it out there, then they keep cutting up and acting crazy. But when we publish our true identity and our true authority, all of that trash just stops. It stops. And then they get into the mode that they should be in, which is your subjects. Not only are you subjects, but at any given point, you have a job to do. You don't exist just to sit here and look like you're looking. You have a job to do. Do your job. Whatever that job is, you do it. And they know what their job is. Their job is chapter 29 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science and the Moorish Holy Temple for Science. Chapter 29 says magistrate and subject. They're subjects, they're subjects, they're subjects, Moors. We are the magistrates. We are the magi. We are the judges. We're the justice. We're the peace. All of that. I mean, I couldn't even get mad at them because it's like, okay, I know that the ancestors caused that to happen so that we could get court actions going regularly. And now we don't put anything on the public record. We don't speak unless it's by way of our courts, and we're our courts. So all it took was for me to do the court action language and I showed on social media, I showed the actual document of the court action telling Federal Way Police Department Corporation, because that's different from the subjects and the custodians in the office of. So I showed that you got court, that all of your commerce is terminated by way of a Universal Commercial Code onlinne, because that's what we put on our court actions. We terminate their commerce. Well, and think about this more. I terminated we, the state, terminated their commerce. And when we terminated their commerce, they stopped coming for the state. Because we're the state. We're not Pauline Denise Ritchie. We're the state.
Empress, I apologize if you stated already. What were they coming for? Was it a prior traffic stop or something?
They had documentation that, so from the event that happened in 2017, we had not paid not one dime, and we weren't going to pay any dime on anything that they sent out. And they had some allonges attached to their corpse, not us, but their corpse. And they were trying to get us to commit to being the corpse so that they could kick the door in and take folks. That's what they were coming for. But because we terminated all corporate contracts, That was the key. So they said, okay, she terminated all corporate contracts on the public record. So we're going to have to get a contract with her, or else this paperwork ain't worth nothing to them if I'm not who that is. And that's the point we've been trying to make. Empress, thank you for that. The point we're trying to make is if they're frauds, which they are, and we're the real, then any debt that the frauds make is their debt. It's not ours unless we claim it, and we don't claim it. See, Morris, we gotta stop. That's what this whole capitalism piece is about. They capitalize something that sounds like, and it gives the appearance of a natural person, but it's not a natural person. It's a corpse. That's what they were doing. They were saying, okay, we have. And I think that at that time, their paperwork was saying that their corpse owed $10,000 in bond money, bond fiat, quote unquote, because they said that, oh, you have to come back to court. This is what they told their corpse. The corpse, they set a court date for their corpse, and I'm not their corpse, so I didn't go. I just sent documentation, and that was when I was telling you all more. Earlier in 2018, okay, they had said, this was January 4th, 2018. I set myself free by standing on my square. And then they said, okay, their corpse, they sent some documentation saying their corpse has a future court date to be in their court. Well, I'm not their corpse. And on that day, and this was probably May or June or something like that, on the day, I think it was March or April, somewhere around there. On that day that they had set their court date for their corpse, I was going back and forth in my mind, okay, should I go? Should I not go? What? Because I don't want them kicking the door in and getting my Empress. I don't want them to scare her like that. I don't want that to be the case. And so that was when I called our Grand Sheik and told him what was going on. And I said, should I go and turn myself in? And he said, for what? He said, they're not talking to you. He said, but you can't just leave it out like that. You can't just leave it hanging. You must rebut what they're saying. So I did. I sent 2 extensive affidavits because they had 2 documentations that they were 2 contracts that they were attempting to act on. Well, when I was in there in 2017, I didn't sign anything. I didn't sign. In my wallet, I had like some fiat at the time. This was 2017. And again, I was only 5 months old, so I was in transition too. And I had both moorishe ID and then I had corporate ID. And I had some fiat in there. And I didn't even sign for it for them to take it because they wanted to get a signature saying, this is your property. Sign for your property so that when you get out, you can take your property with you. I said, I ain't signing nothing. He said, and the guy said, and it was a brother. He said, you're not even going to sign, you're not going to sign for your stuff? Nope, I'm not signing for it. I'm not signing anything. I'm not. I wasn't going to sign anything. And because they didn't have anything, if you don't have anything, what are you acting on? So then after I got out, they sent the spell, and I called and I said, do I need to go to this? What do I do? Because I was new. I didn't know anything like what I know now, and he knew. So our Grand Sheik said, don't. He said, why would you go? Why would you do that? He asked me a question, and he didn't even answer what I said. I asked him, should I go? He said, why? Which was very wise of him. He's very, very wise. And so I said, okay, well, And as I was typing the documents, Morris, as I was typing the documents, I felt my strength return physically, because I was weak after all of that worry. I was weak. And I was, I was like, I'm going to demonstrate who I am, because I know that we are who we are. And as I was typing, I got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And as I mailed that off, I was like, do you know they cannot touch us? They really cannot. Without our consent? No. No. And then that was that. I sent those off in probably April, May time frame or something like that. And then at the end, like in September, October time frame was when they came and started knocking on the door, because they were like, okay, she passed that step right there where, terminating all corporate contracts. So we got to try and get a contract from her. And every day that they were coming, they were getting more and more like, it was just, if my ego was in the way, I probably would have opened the door, because they were parking on the street where all the neighbors could see, and all of that. I mean, because the driveway is a little bit longer than the normal driveway. And they were parking on the street and coming in 2 and 3 vehicles every day. Every day for 3 weeks. And the ancestors said, this is your test. This is your test, and you need to start doing court action, because you all are the court. I knew their courts were fake. I had proven that in my first demonstration in 2000 when they detained me first then. I proved that they're not a real court. And the ancestors said, okay, court time. And so we did court actions, and they stopped coming. And then the ancestors said, okay, you can't stop there, because everything that we do more, we can't park there. We actually have to keep manifesting. So the ancestors said, okay, that's good. You did that. Now you're doing court actions, but everything you say must come from your court. So you're going to have to do court action language at the top of every affidavit, so that even if you're talking about something that you think is insignificant, it still must come from your court. And what they were doing was setting us up. The ancestors are so brilliant. They were setting us up so that we could state that we're the real court, so that those fake courts would get under our authority. And as you can see on the documentations that we have now, that anytime we need a lower court witness to enforce what we say, we just get a lower court witness. We just get a stamp, from the lower courts. And whenever we need a sheriff, because we're the real sheriff, whenever we need a custodian in the office of sheriff to enforce what we state, then we get that. Now, have we done that yet? We haven't done that yet, but we're going to do it very soon. I'm watching what's happening in terms of the demonstrations and strategically timing things. I also didn't want to move in that capacity yet until after my spirit said, okay, now it's time to do that. And I believe that the demonstration that I did this past Friday that I was telling you about before the recording started had everything to do with that, even though at the time I did not know that that's what my spirit was wanting me to do. And the only reason that I'm not really talking about that demonstration on this recording is because I don't want Morris to go out there and do that, and then, your spirit has to tell you to do that. And I'll say this about the documentations and things. everything that we say, we get a lower court witness on what we say, so that the custodians and the subjects can hear, because they can hear through that mechanism. They can hear through that mechanism. And that is why the ancestors have given us the access there. It's kind of like Esther and the king's signet ring, where you, and again, that's not our king. We don't have a king. We're the king. Kings are subject to the emperors and the heirs and the empresses. Okay, a king is a lower office than the heirs. So we say, okay, here, you, since the custodians know that you are their king, because we said you are, then we will use you so we don't have to even directly deal with them. We use the lower court to deal with them directly about what we say. So that's another level of nobility that we're using. And all Moors have that authority. And even what we have, Moors can use. That's what happened in the book of Esther. Read the story of Queen Esther. Queen Esther in the Biblios-Heliotext, the Bible. All she did was, someone had said, we're going to kill all of them. All they were saying is, we're going to capitalize them and enslave them. And any of them that don't want to go willingly, we will kill them. And she said, okay, I need your scepter. And then all she did was distribute the documents throughout the kingdom that says that the people can rightfully proclaim who they are and be themselves, and then defend themselves. That took documentation throughout the kingdom. And all kingdoms are under our empire. See, the story of Esther is a little bit, it's hypothecated. Esther was the real authority. She was the real authority, and he knew that. That's why he picked her. And he didn't really pick her, she picked him. Or she wouldn't have come to the you know, to his court. Because even in the book of Esther, it talks about the king's court. All of that is allegory for court actions, Moors. All of the things that are going on in the Biblios-Heliotext, in the Bible, is about court. The Bible is a legal code book. And when we know how to read, and we know how to read, that's why we quote it properly. And when we quote it properly, frauds and fakes cannot misquote it and use it to enslave. And that's why we choose to quote the Bible every now and then. It's because it's been used to enslave, but we know the real meaning of the word. And the more we quote it, you're starting to see, now I don't know if you all are seeing this, but I've seen it in the news often here lately, that those, and I'm not saying all of them are fake, but a lot of those quote unquote buildings that are doing business as churches are being raided by the custodians in the Office of Law Enforcement. They're being raided. Custodians in the Office of FBI, etc. Why? Because they don't have the authority to capitalize anyone's resources. And as soon as we said we're going to start leaning that fraud now, we're not mad again at anyone. And we know that many in churches have sincere, their hearts are sincere. Many of our kin are in churches. Many of you know that my father was a bishop and he started a church, and it went pretty viral back then, you know. But we didn't know that we were being capitalized and that souls were being claimed by capitalization, by what you sign, tithe envelopes and the like. Speaking of tithes, empresses, I have a word from the ancestors for you. Not that you don't get words from them directly, because you do. But they have been impressing on me heavily over the last few days and weeks to tell you this. Put God first. What does that mean? Who is God? You. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your body. Because the whole earth needs you. Put God first. That's what that really means. Because you can't take care of anyone until you take care of yourself first. You can't even birth the nations if you're not well taken care of. Put God first, empresses, matriarchs, mothers of all. That's the message. So with that being said, are there any other wisdom or anything that you've been seeing out there? Again, the one thing we can do, declare our nationality. We've guaranteed our freedom by making it so that no one else can capitalize the Moors and our resources. No one else can do that. You cannot create a shell corporation and say that it's the Moors, because we've published who we are. And did you know that all finance comes by way of capitalism in this sense? That's why we had to do that. Now, at some point, we won't even use capitalism. But we had to properly transition capitalism back to us because it came from us initially. So that's what we're doing, and then we're getting commerce started in the favor of the Moors, of course, and that's what we're going to be manifesting. And we'll use the subjects and things to do the things we need to do. So, but we needed to properly proclaim who we are on the public record, and then take control of our data, because it's the data that appeared to have gotten away from us, so that other people could put something on a piece of paper and we think they're talking about us. They don't have the authority, because we've already published on the public record who we are and who has the authority to speak about us. So from this point forward, you know, forms and things like that, we speak by affidavit. So there is a video that I watched the other day that really kind of brought home even further more about capitalism and about venture capitalists and what they do and what Bitcoin was doing and all of that. It's about a 20-minute video. I'll put the link to that video in the chat just so that, you know, he that hath an ear, you know, some may see what I saw in the video and some may not. It's okay. But I do want you to just take a look at it. Those who are interested in knowing more about capitalism and how it was used to usurp. Let me, I'm going to put it in the chat. I will get it in there as soon as I find it. It's an interesting video because I'm seeing the subjects. What they're doing is they are trying to find ways to exist with no capital, little to no capital. And I say no capital just because capital belongs to us. Let's see. My computer is running a little bit on the slow side.
Empress, while you're doing that, may I present two resources for the Moors to assist with their affidavits?
Please,
and they probably already know about them, but the SCC website is called the State Corporation Commission Clerks Information System website, cis.scc.virginia.gov. And it's not just Virginia corporations that you can find up there, but I paired that website with if you Google open corporates, like let's say you have a corporation in mind that you want to look up, and type that corporation name in Google and add open corporates to it, and you should be able to find the website address for that particular corporation on the open corporates website, and then you can go in and find the entity ID and copy and paste the entity ID, and then go to the SCC website, and there's a search section where you can go ahead and paste the entity ID there and search, and it'll bring up the corporation, and you can see that corporations, it's different documents that are there. It could be articles of incorporations for that particular corporation, the custodian doing business as attorney, their cover sheets and different communications that they put, and there's so much information you can actually see the paperwork. Islam, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Empress.
Empress, thank you. I had to step away from the computer for just a minute. Empress, what have you been finding with that information? What have you been, you've been able to find different their numbers?
You can, so you pair those two websites together, the Open Corporates website. So let's say, for example, one of the corporations that I leaned was Pete Living Real Estate Company. And so you pull up a Google page and type in Pete Living Real Estate Management Company Open Corporates, and then it'll bring up results, and then you find the result that is right there. You click on the result, and you can see. Let me pull up one really quick. Let's see. I'm still here. Give me one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I Google Peak Living Real Open Corporates. And then you get a multiple results. I'm going to click on the first one, and it says Peak Living LLC, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And then I clicked on it, and it's in the name of the website is Open Corporates. And on this website, you can see if the company is still active, their incorporation date. It says the company type foreign LLC, jurisdiction Nebraska, branch Peak Living LLC. You can just see so much. And then there's a company number there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but most often than not, it does work. And it says company number. I'm copying and pasting that. And then I go to the SCC website, and there's in the middle section, there's 3 columns. I go to the middle section that says search, and there's a business entity search. And that number that I copied, I'm pasting it into the entity ID, and then you search it. And then it didn't pull up anything for this one, but it more often than not, it will pull something up, but it didn't for this particular one. But anyway, you search it, and it'll pull up that corporation, when they got started. You can see the paperwork on how they got started, the name of the custodian doing business as attorney that started the corporation, their presidents, vice presidents, everybody that's involved in that corporation, how many shares that they have with the corporation, just a whole bunch of different information.
And then the SEC website is, you said cis.sec.
Virginia.gov.
Okay. Is it VA or the whole word Virginia?
The whole word Virginia.
Okay. Virginia. Okay. Thank you for that, Empress.
Empress, could you repeat that?
What, the website for SEC? Is that
Please.
what you? Sure.
Please.
Is CIS. I'm gonna start over. CIS.SCC. Virginia spelled all the way out.
SCC.
Virginia spelled all the way out. .gov.
Is this correct on the screen, Empress?
Let me get back to that. Give me 1 second. Yeah, SCC, 2 C's.
SCC. Okay. SCC.gov. Okay. That's interesting, you know.
Islam, I'm sorry. I did have a quick question. Was that the website that you went initially to find the information to do the search on this particular website?
No, it's Open Corporates.
Opencorporates.gov?
Let's see. Opencorporates.com.
Okay. And that's for all corporations?
I use this regularly. Like, I don't even use Duns and Bradstreet anymore. I use this one regularly.
Okay. And that's how you look to see if your liens have been processed, you say, I think?
No, I just use this because I just want to see the paperwork. I want to see the paperwork that was submitted to start the corporation. I just want to see different information.
Okay.
That information is good when you, especially when you're talking about financial things that have to do with the company, the corporation, and the resources that they're claiming and things like that. That's important when you're talking about. You know.
Absolutely, and you'll find the registered agent, which is usually the custodian in the office of attorney. Is usually an attorney that's listed as the registered agent, and you can see all the corporations. Like, if you can just do additional searches and find other corporations that particular custodian has under their name.
You know, in doing that type of research, Empress, you know what I found out? I found out also that each one of the 50 corporate states also produced their own United States in their state that they were pretending to be. Each one of them, and then they would open U.S. district courts in their states. So it was not the same corporation, but it kind of was. You know, it is the same corporation because they're all one. But each one of the states, the corporate states, quote unquote, opened or started a United States corporation company or a United States corporation, a corporation with the name United States, so that they could do things and say United States versus so-and-so in their state.
I haven't noticed that yet, but I'm sure I will now that you're mentioning it.
I noticed it first when I looked up when I was looking for the corporate number for the United States Corporation Company, and I noticed that there were so many of them, and they were located in different states, quote unquote, corporate states. And then when I started doing court research about, you know, like looking at old cases and things like that, each and every state's district court, and I'm using, and again, those are corporate terms, we know that's not real, but each one of those U.S. district courts was started by the state and was representing the United States. So you'll see many cases that say, even on our judicial proclamation, you see a case that says United States versus something or someone. The United States is a corporation. How are they prosecuting people? That's a corporation. Corporations cannot govern. We should have known something was up then. There's moorishe cases where Moors would go into these U.S. district courts, and it would be United States versus John Bay or something like that. And I'm like, that just does not look right at all. It just looked out of place, you know. And that is where statehood came into my purview. I started thinking to myself, the United States is not a state, so how are they going against a Moor? Well, the Moors needed to state their statehood, and now we use our state to go against individual corpses and corporations. And when I say individual corporations, Smith, John, and I'm talking modern European or anyone in corporate status, Smith, John is a corporation. He's not a CEO. Gates, Bill. That's not a CEO. That's a subject on our land. And if he's acting in a corporate status and attempting to capitalize the heirs, when we said don't do that because we're in charge of our own capitalism, then our court, our district court, or our Article 3 court, and our court is all of the above, can bring that subject into court and say, what are you, who are you? No, you're not the United States. That's not you. You are a subject on our land. So you can't come and use the state as something that's protecting you. You don't represent the state. We're the state. No one represents us. And that's what they've been doing. Empress, you asked me what paperwork were they using to come and knock on the door. It's some stuff they invented over there. That's number one. And number two, they were saying Washington and the state of Washington and city of Federal Way versus Pauline Denise Ritchie. Their corpse, not me. So they would gang up like that, and I was brand new then, I was thinking to myself, why is the whole state coming after me? That's what I was thinking. The state and the city, why are they coming after me? It can be, if that kind of a spell is meant to be intimidating. Until we think about it, I don't see anybody named State of Washington talking to me. Where is the one who was born and their mother said, I'm calling you the State of Washington? Or I'm calling you the city of Federal Way. Where is that person? Because if I don't see that person, and that person is not in their proper status, then that person doesn't exist. Capitalism is the platform that these foreign spirits have been using. So all we do is, we're not even mad at them. We just look at it and say, okay, we see them doing this and this and this. So let's look in the law and see where all of this goes and put it in its proper place. So now we're Federal Way City. We're the real Federal Way. That means that there might be someone out there pretending to be a clone. And whatever a clone does, the original didn't do. That means that clone is, if that clone commits a crime, the original is not responsible for that. The original is not responsible for any crimes committed by a clone. Their Pauline Denise Ritchie is a clone, and a very poor one at that. I'm not responsible for their clone's crime. I'm blameless. We all are. Who can pin a crime on God? Only God can do that. No one else can. And what we are saying right now, let me just say this about that, because I want to clarify that any of us, for example, and I'll just use myself as an example. Anytime, let's say my ego just jumped up and was like, yeah, they can't do nothing with me. They can't do nothing with me. You know what happens when ego jumps up like that and starts cutting up and acting crazy? A part of our consciousness is averse to that, and it turns off kind of, sort of. Not really, but sort of. And it will cause us to forget the things that we're telling you now. It will cause fear to arise when we're challenged. And then we'll have to humble ourselves so that we can get out of that, so that we can pass that test. We'll have to humble ourselves so we can pass the test. Because when we're humble, we can think straight. Ego and pride cause us to not think straight.
Yep, Empress, when my ego gets in the way, I would, what she said is on point. I would just add that my brain takes a picture of it, and shortly after, I'm getting a test to humble me. I get a test to humble me, and I quickly remember, okay, this is why this is happening, because I said this.
Yes. Ooh, Empress, that's some life-saving, energy-enforcing, beautiful knowledge, because it's going to make our way so easy, because we know how to keep our way easy. It's just keep the ego out of it. Keep the ego and all of that emotion and the programming and all of that. Keep all of that stuff out of what we're doing. And I'll tell you this, humility is not being somebody's doormat. In fact, our humility looks like pure strength. Our humility is scary. It looks like pure strength and does not have to flex because we don't need to flex. All we have to do is speak the law. Could we flex? We could, but why? We don't need to. Ego energy, we're not even mad at ego energy because it was there for us in our sleep when we needed it. It caused us to excel in a lot of things that we could have been lacking in if we didn't think we were better than that. You know, and then ego was misplaced, but still, it caused us to excel in our sleep. Well, now excelling is a state that we are in into perpetuity. So we don't need ego to express that. It just is. It just is. And we just keep moving. You know. So that's another reason why we say that before we're tested, the ancestors will tell us we got a test coming. And they generally point to the ego and say, you got a test coming because that needs to be put in place. Our ancestors will do that. If it's one thing that opens the door to testing, it's ego. So when Moors say things like, we shouldn't be going through that, we shouldn't be doing, well, you know, actually, the ancestors know that we're strong enough to get past anything. And how do we get past it? They test us past it, generally. And then after a while, testing won't be necessary in that manner because we'll go on autopilot with knowing that we don't need certain energies. We don't need ego energy. We don't need worry and fear and, you know, we don't need those energies. Fear. I wrestled with that one. Not really wrestled, but it was something because that was the first thing I said to the ancestors is, how do we get past the ones with the guns and the black clothes on and the black robes and the black uniforms? How do we get past them? Because I was fearful. The ancestors said, we'll just test that fear right out of you, Light. Don't worry. We're going to have you go to jail a couple of times. And after you demonstrate who you are, you're going to know that they never had any authority over you. Never. Never had any authority over you. Because that was my biggest fear. Was policy enforcers, fake judges, and jail. And the ancestors said, okay, you asked the question, we're going to show you the answer. They have no authority over you, but you're going to prove that to yourself. You don't have to prove it to anybody else. Prove it to yourself. And the subjects got right on in line, and they was like, okay, 3 weeks in a row, we going straight to Light's house. We're gonna knock on the door. We're gonna do everything we can to scare the crap out of her. And the ancestor said, okay, use what you know. Use the law. And where is the law spoken in a courtroom? It's spoken in a courtroom. Where's the courtroom? We are the court. Wherever we are, it's court. No matter where that is. Doesn't matter. And again, like we were saying before, every cell in a jail, it has a bar and a bench. It's a courtroom. It's a courtroom. Make no mistake about it. A jail cell is a courtroom. We saw it with our own eyes. So we used it as such while we were there, and they were like, eject, eject, get her out of here. So, Moors, we got this, and whatever we fear, the ancestors tend to use that to show us how strong we are, to show us who we really are, to show us our strength, and to reassure us that nothing is over the Moors. There's nothing above us, nothing and no one above us. We have dominion over all, over everything. So, thank you for that, Empress. That's, what is it that you fear, Moors? What do you fear? What's your greatest fear? We're not afraid of death because we don't die. And knowing that, that alone is like, death is actually temporary for us. It's a split second. It's a split second, and then we open our eyes again. Death is very temporary. It only lasts a nanosecond, if that. And then we back doing whatever, you know, being the law on whatever dimension that we're at. So those Moors that have transitioned, they're alive. They're still alive. They're still alive. They're just able to do more in terms of they can be in more places at once than ever. You know, our matriarchs who've gone on, for example, my mother, she's in my heart, but she's also in the hearts of all my brothers and sisters, and then many people who loved her. So she can be in all these places at once. She is omnipresent. All Moors are omnipresent. All who have gone on are omnipresent. They can be split second. All we got to do is think about them. And here they are. So, you know, and that's whether they knew who they were or not. The ones who have gone on who did not know they were Moors came here to assist us in what we're doing now. Our mothers came to birth us so that we could wake up. They came here, they said, I'm going to go there, and I will provide the stargate for you to come through. This is all agreements we made before we got here. I'll provide the stargate for you to come through, and then I'm going to come back up here, and you do what you're supposed to do there. That way, everyone coming after you will be free. That's why all of us are here. The things that we're dealing with right now, who in the world would want to leave this for their heirs to deal with? I'm not leaving it for my empress to deal with this, the things that we were dealing with previously. I didn't ever want her to wake up and think that she had to do what a policy enforcer told her. Sight unseen, without no questions, nobody in their proper status, nothing. No, she's not going to have to deal with that. And should she be tested, she's got some help, because we've all put things together. We did this, Moors. We have made the way for those who are coming after us that much easier. Now they can come and just create from day one. They can be themselves from day one. No question about it. If I were to have an heir today, which I would love to have another baby, If I were to have one today, my child would be, she would be from day one free to do whatever and be whomever she chooses to be. There's no lack of resources. There's no lack of anything. She can have whatever she wants in terms of becoming who she needs to be. The one thing that I've been seeing about all of this, speaking of that, is whenever we say that we don't need to do a 9 to 5, that we need access to our estate, some will say, well, if they don't work, they're going to be lazy. They're not going to do. No, that's not true. I work more now than I did when I was in corporate, quote unquote, corporate America, and sleep, fast asleep. I work way more now. In fact, my whole life, everything in my sleep, I dream about this. When I'm awake, it's always governing. So from this point, our heirs don't ever have to worry about the things that we had to worry about when we first realized the situation that we thought we were in. The acting is over. The theater is ended. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. You dream about liens, Empress Angel? I dream about court. I dream about court. And my dreams tell me what frequency I'm on, so that I know what spirit work to do when I wake up. It's a gauge. My dreams are a gauge. If I have a dream and it scares me, then I know I need to do more spirit work, because I shouldn't be afraid of anything, nor anyone. Certain times of the month, depending on the moon and the sun and the cosmos, and my sign, my cosmological and astrological sign, my birth chart, certain times of the month, fear may present itself to be more prevalent. So I have to keep all of that in mind with regard to, and we all have to do that. We have to keep that in mind when, whatever you're feeling. The first thing we should think about is, what time of the month is this? Where's the moon? What does my birth chart say? Why am I feeling this? And that's the first step in getting control of emotions and not letting emotions rule you, so that you can be yourself. Because you can be yourself when emotions do not rule you. That's why we don't do feelings and beliefs. We do the law.
Empress, that's very important to remember, because I'll go days of feeling low and trying to figure out what's wrong with me, and then it'll dawn on me, okay, it's a new moon, or or something like that.
Yes. Or Mercury is in retrograde. That's a big one for the Moors. Mercury being in retrograde, because that has it has an effect on certain signs, and yeah, we must look at that. And the matriarchs specifically need to look at that, because there are other factors in terms of they call it hormones, but it's hormones. Hormones. We have to keep all of that in mind and know that our wounds govern the moon, not the other way around. And hormones is actually, I'll just put it on the screen, is actually, this is the real word, or the real word. That's what hormones really are. It's hormones. Okay? So keep that in mind when you're feeling down or whatever you're feeling. Okay, that is what that is, and then look at your birth chart and see, so that you know that whatever it is that you're feeling can easily be changed by you. And that's why feelings and beliefs is not something that we govern by, because we can change them so easily. It doesn't even matter what the feeling is. It could be a bad feeling or a good feeling. But if you're feeling any feelings that throughout the day that are bothering you, you can change them instantly. Instantly. By knowing, just take a look at your birth chart, see what's going on. Oh, Mercury's in retrograde. Okay. Then you know what I can do? I can feel better about that right now, because Mercury does not have control of me. I have control of Mercury. Why am I feeling this way? Because, and that's why, that's why you see me smiling most of the time. Now, if it ain't nothing to smile about, I'm not going to smile, but my mouth ought to be painted in a smile. All of our mouths ought to be painted in a smile. We got so much to be excited about. The whole earth is ours. The earth is the Lord, the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. We have been given the nations, and when we say nations, that's actually not a good translation. We've been given, because the Bibliotheliotech, the Bible says we've been given the nations as our inheritance. What does that mean? That means that every citizen and every subject is at our service. That's what that really means. We've been given the nations as our inheritance. And we know that they're not nations, they're societies. But it's their it's their book, their translation that we've been looking at. So what did they do? They changed that around, and then they tried to claim us and say the nations are our inheritance. We can do whatever we want. Well, capitalism, if we didn't know that capitalism was what they were using to claim us, or attempt to claim us, or give the appearance of claiming us, then we wouldn't know. So with that being said, are there any other comments, questions, wisdom?
Islam.
Empress.
In those low times for me, excuse me, I put on my favorite music and I dance and I sing, and I talk to spirit through those, that letting go of shaking my body and my soul of the dark grip, the funky dark cloud over my head. And I dance until I can't dance anymore. And once I'm through, I have some time of meditation, and then through that quiet, I seem to be able to get across the river, if so to speak. So anyway, I just want to remind everyone to do something that you really, really love, just for the hell of it, in times like that. And for me, it's singing and dancing.
Islam. I will say this too about that, especially at this time that we're in right now. This time that we're in, I want to refer you to Isaiah, the 60th chapter. That is the time that we are in right now. If you want to know where we are and where we are on the timeline, it is Isaiah the 60th chapter. And Isaiah the 60th chapter, it tells you a little bit about that feeling of, because there are many of the citizens. There are many of the citizens who are talking about the darkness that is on the earth. They call it darkness. Isaiah the 60th chapter talks about that darkness and what it means. And that darkness that is talked about in Isaiah the 60th chapter is the same darkness that is talked about in Genesis the 1st chapter, because we're in those places right now. So if you can put Isaiah the 60th chapter and Genesis the 1st chapter together, you will know what's happening right now. Okay? Isaiah the 60th chapter talks about, it says, arise and shine, for thy light has come, and that's the light in all of us. And the glory of the Lord. And anytime you see the word Lord, you can put the word law there. Or you can just think about you, because you're the Lord. The Moors are the Lord for the land. So it says, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. It's within you, really, because this is a hypothecated or a subrogated translation. So they're putting the Lord and the light outside of them and saying that it's risen upon them, when for us it comes from within us. It says, for behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall arise within thee, and her glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. This is talking about commerce. If you look at different translations, it will literally say merchants are coming and bringing gold and silver and those things to you. Okay. And then it says, and you can read this. We won't read the whole thing right now. The multitude of camels shall cover thee. They're talking about the camels that are just loaded down with abundance. Okay, and this verse 5 is really important. It says, then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. The forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. This is a blessing. When it talks about fear here and be enlarged, it's saying that you're going to marvel at how much abundance is coming to you, even by way of the Gentiles. And we know who the Gentiles are. The Gentiles are the subjects and the citizens on our land. It's talking about all of that and about what they're going to bring, and how it says, the sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee. The sons also of them that afflicted thee, or tested you, shall come bending unto you. This is where we are right now. Okay? Read this when you see things like this right here, read it in a translated version, because they did the best that they could with translating this right here. There's a chapter in the Holy Quran that also talks about one mother has given you suck. When it talks about the Gentiles, all that means is that we took care of everyone. We took care of everyone. And so this right here, read it in a different translation, because this is a very poor translation of this scripture. For brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. I will also make thy officers peace. Again, this is where we are. And thine exactors righteousness. This right here, 16 and 17, is just talking about sustenance and abundance. Whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. And this just means we're going to always be taken care of. Always. But it has to happen at our own hand. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation and thy gates praise. All of this is where we are. Now, when it talks about the darkness, for behold, the darkness shall cover the earth and gross darkness the people, all that means is that old structure has fallen. And in Genesis, the first chapter, it talks about how we looked upon the earth and it was without form and void, and darkness covered the face. So now what do? We start naming things and speaking things into existence. We put the constitutions on the public record. So what did we do? We said we're going to name the land so that it's not dark and without form or void. We put metes and bounds on the public record. Okay? So it's no longer without form and void. And that's why these two go together, Isaiah 60. And once we've done that and put our own economic system in place, which has always been there, we just needed to uncover it, then all of these other blessings come. They're talking about gold, and the word gold is mentioned many times in this one chapter for a reason. They can't bring the gold if there's not substance for substance. Okay, so this is where we are in terms of our nation and us naming and claiming things and making sure that we put it in writing. It is written. It is written. It is written. And now, anytime you're faced with anything, just say it is written. And how do you know it's written? Because you wrote it. You are the author. You're the authority. The law is the law because we put it on the public record. And for no other reason is it the law. It's the law because of that. Because the law wrote it. That's why name change in judicial proclamation, appellation change in judicial proclamation, that is so important. Because that's saying that we are in control of the law that governs the all caps name. There were so many, every CEO was trying to claim that all caps and say it was us. Every CEO was trying to do that. Or everyone acting as CEOs. Let me put it that way, because we're the real CEOs. All they did was say, hey, let's offer them anything. I don't care what you offer them. Socks, insurance, mortgages, I don't care. Whatever it is, just offer them things so that we can get their autograph and their consent to use things so we can create bonds and derivatives and allonges and contracts and all of that from them. Yes, the Holy Covenant of the Asiatic nation. Yes, Islam nobility. And then chapter 29, magistrate and subject. Yes. So with that being said, magistrate and subject is saying the same thing that Isaiah the 60th chapter is saying. It's saying that we are going to rise with the help and the assistance of the subjects. The magistrate will rise and shine, and then all of the wealth comes and the prosperity. Wealth and prosperity first has to be in our soul. It manifests within us first. And that's why I smile so much, because the wealth has already manifested. It has already manifested. Seeing it's even manifested on paper. Why? Because we put it on paper. When you put it on paper, it manifests for you. It is written. And then when we unify and come together like we've done, it's a wrap. No one can, we have no opposition. We have no foes. We were our only foe, but now we've gotten in alignment with ourselves and our knowledge. So with that being said, are there any other questions, comments, anything of that nature? Yes, Justice Kansu says, God, old, and gold, is there a connection? Yes, absolutely there is. They're all saying the same thing. Old is ancient. We're the gods, the ancient gods, and the gold is the resource of which the gods are the source. The ancient gods, which is us. Absolutely, yes. We only needed a few letters in order to say what we needed to say. Think about it. Every word came from 22 to 26 letters. I think we have the shortest alphabet of everyone. Yes, Empress, there's a connection when we say that it is Islam. That's, Justice Consul, whenever you say it's a connection, and Justice Consul, you've kind of already, just by asking the question, you've already stated that there is a connection. Because by the time the sovereigns ask a question, we already know the answer. We just might need assistance in putting it in connecting the dots in our mind. But yeah. With that being said, Islam, Empress.
Yes. Okay, so on the singing part, that's something that I like to do too with the songs I grew up with in church. But one of the things I always did was trying to transmute, even before I nationalized, was trying to transmute the songs so it could reflect more of my higher self. Yes. And today, I was going to sing a song, and I've been studying, and I was going to say, Lord, I worship you, to worship my own Lord. And I was like, wait, that's worship. That's worship.
Yeah.
Lord, I worship you.
Yes.
No.
Now, Empress, I'll say this. If you spell it a different way, then it will mean what you intend for it to mean, so you can keep singing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's what ancient English is about.
Okay.
It puts forth our true intention, and no one can question it.
Yeah, that's true.
See, all other languages that we have ever heard were made up by somebody. They made them up. They made them up and then said, okay, this is the language you're going to speak. Ancient English comes straight from our soul because we each spell it the way we want to spell it so that it means what we want it to mean. So it comes straight from our soul. Ancient English is the only language that was created. Mm-hmm. The rest of the languages were made up, and when I say made up, they were put on people and said, this is what this means, and if you don't say it and spell it this way and mean it this way, you're wrong.
No, that's real. I mean, I experienced that, I think around January. I was going through major initiation stuff, and I got a download. I was saying our S's should be Z's and our C's should be K's.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know, because I didn't know everything I knew today. And, you know, but I was like, because we need to make this land Africa. I kept saying that, like, we need to make this land Africa. That's what's going to bring back authenticity and realness. And, like, I went to the mall, and then I was at, like, a Belgium place, and literally, I don't know if it was my third eye or what, and I saw the C turn into a K. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It freaked me.
Yeah.
I freaked out. But yeah, it's real. Like, we really are the living Akasha. Like, we have it.
Yes, we're the ancient records. Walking, living, speaking, breathing ancient records.
Yes.
Why wouldn't we use ancient English? Why wouldn't we? Because it's the only language that flows freely from our souls, and no one can say it's wrong.
Yes.
You know, I've even had Moors who should know better than to tell Moors what they can and cannot do. Say, ancient English is not a language. It is if the sovereigns say it is. It is if the sovereigns say it is. Why? Because we're at Genesis 1. Name it, claim it, and call it done. Period. Who were the Phoenicians? The Moors who were saying, we're going to coin. Even our words are money. We're going to coin this term. Really? Yes, it's real. We really have the authority to coin whatever we want to coin. And not even another sovereign can tell us no. But then they'll say that a language that some foreigners taught them is a real language. And that includes all of them, all them other ones that the foreigners taught in their schools, and said, listen, I even won the spelling bee when I was in the 4th grade in Miss Foster's class. I just, R.I.P. Miss Foster. Thank you for helping me out with my spelling, with casting those spells. But that made it easier for me to transition to ancient English straight from my soul. Straight from my soul. So, yeah, I just, you know, I'm grateful for all that the ancestors have given us and shown us, and I'm grateful that we're all doing it together. That's more important than anything that's ever, any process. No process can outweigh the unity. You know, so yeah, a lot of Moors were getting that download about the ancient English all at the same time, and so when we started putting things out there in ancient English, it caught on like wildfire. And they were like, yep, I knew it. It felt right. I knew they were spelling this wrong. I'm going to spell it this way. And the Moors who have more Hebrew in their blood were spelling things like the Hebrews. When you look at I can look at the ancient English that any Moor uses, and I can tell them that the majority of their tribe came from this people or that people. Just by the way that they freely express their ancient English. Mine is absolutely French, but then, you know, Richie is French. And, you know, a lot about us is the original French Moors. Everything that has to do with us is French, you know. And then most of our spells are cast using French, ancient French rules for writing. Rules for writing, not rules of writing. So, and that happens just by, you know, just by natural organic creation. I just started looking at why did I feel it necessary to double these letters and double those letters and add, instead of it being 2 L's, instead of it being 1 L, put 2, etc. And when I started looking more closely at the dialect of English, because see, one thing they didn't tell us is that there are over 200 dialects of English. How do we know that? Because there are over 200, there's about 209 original indigenous nations on the earth. And each one of them knows English, and they all speak it the way they know it. They write it the way they know it. They don't write it the way the foreign POW schools taught us. They write and speak it the way they want to write and speak it. The ones over there that were doing business as the crown should have told us that. So who is it that can tell us that ancient English is not a proper, true dialect of English? And it is actually the mother of all Englishes, of all those different dialects, just like everything else about us is the mother of everything else. People who say that that ancient English is not a language, they just don't know. They just don't know that. They don't know where language comes from. Because before there was ever any language at all, the Phoenicians used to telepathically speak to each other. We do a lot of that right now. Even as I'm speaking, I can be thinking of something and someone will say it on this call. Happens all the time, all the time. When I say things, I can hear what some of the thoughts that are coming through. So I clarify according to the thoughts that I'm hearing. And then someone will say, you know what, I'm glad you said that because I was just thinking the same thing. That's telepathy. That's telepathy among the Moors. So our natural gifts are coming through. We just have to call it a natural gift when we see it happen. So, yeah. We got this. It's a wrap. It is a wrap. I'm looking forward to all that our ancestors are unfolding for us in every way, in every way. There's nothing we cannot have and nothing we cannot do. Our Grand Sheik this past Friday at House of Reawakening Mind said something very important. And this goes back to what we just read in Isaiah and all. Because he sees what's happening. He said and I've never heard him say anything like that, but what he said was that he encouraged Moors to get around Moors who have a positive attitude and who are positive about things. And that's very important right now for the very reason of Isaiah the 60th chapter, that our light is coming within us. It's coming. It is emerging. There is a deep darkness that is otherwise, but it has to manifest that, so that the ancient delineation between light and dark is made manifest. And then you go back to Genesis 1, where we began to create from what we see. We have all new everything. The old things are passed away, and behold, all things are become new. And it's becoming new as we continue to manifest the newness. But with that newness, all of the old things are darkening and falling away. That's what the darkness is. And it's good to stay to do your spirit work, number one, because you're in control of how you feel. No one else is in control of how you feel. You're in control of it. Unless you yield that to someone else, you know. That's where the term, he made me mad or she made me mad. Well, no one can make you mad unless you say they making you mad, you know, because that means you're saying they created you into something mad. Well, who has the power to create the gods? No one but the God. So we don't give that authority to anyone else by saying he made me mad, because they can't do it unless you let yourself get mad, you know. And that's where we are now in all of this, is we're now able to create whatever we want to create, however we want the earth to look, however we want the, you know, the commerce to look, however we want any of this to look. We get to create that right now. In the meantime, and this is the transition that we are making now, is that everything that we knew before is fading, and the newness of whatever we create is manifesting. Okay. Trying to think, there's a scripture in the Bible about that also, about this transitionary period. The bibliophiliotext talks about this transitionary period quite a bit throughout. Based on our choices, we've chosen to unite and to govern. Well, only blessing comes with that. Only blessings come with that. There's nothing negative that can come with that. Only the best. Only the brightest. The highest quality of everything comes with that. The highest quality of information. All of that. And if you're not feeling this right now, don't worry about it. You will. Just keep demonstrating who you are, and that darkness that is out there, you won't notice so much of it. And that's really what it is. It's not on you. It's just that you notice it more, because that's all we've been looking at our whole lives, is what's going on out there, the corpse darkness. Now we're actually seeing real light come from within us. So we have to prepare and ensure that we keep our eyes on the light that's coming from within us, so that the darkness doesn't bother us. Because I'll tell you this: when that darkness, when the darkness that is taking the old out with it, when that darkness first manifested, I would even feel it when I looked outside. It felt like I was in a bubble, and all around the bubble was dark, but not where I was. It was just like around, like it's almost like the sky had an end to it, and on the other side of the sky was this darkness. And so I learned how to see the light within us, so that doesn't bother me, and I can actually make it not appear. Simply because it has to do with the way we see things and the way we feel and perceive things, and we can change our perception at a moment's notice by what we create, you know. So with that being said, if there's nothing further from the airs, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural
Peace and energy.
Islam.
Peace and grand rising.
Thank you, everyone.
Peace and grand rising.
Thank you, Empress. All right.
Islam.
Peace and
Peace and love.
love.
Islam.
Islam, peace and grand rising.
Islam.
Love.
Yeah. Peace and grand rising.
Islam. Peace and grand rising, nobility.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and grand rising, Justice Kansu.